Interesting news today, Coventry people, TIs in the UK, around the world. UN establishment, UK establishment, what's going on in Coventry University Hospital, social services, mental health sectors. Yeah, the fire service, the police force, all conspiring together with the Swansea Centre Doctors Association. So, this is about some theft from a hospital in Wales. That's what Coventry NHS are doing in their university hospital.
In the NHS, with around 65 million people in the UK, that's a lot of patients to look after. One man looked at the cash-strapped NHS and saw an opportunity to make a few extra £1,000 for himself.
Now that's what the Coventry people I'm exposing, the sector workers and the local people conspiring with them. Yeah, they've got all this equipment together to spy on me, my mother, my brother, and with me they're interested because the local people told them, and the nurses that lived around here, that I was winning money off my football throughout the seasons. They've done it for 15 years. Yeah, so that's why they're going to imprison them. Yeah, you can just hear the equipment then. If you've got loudspeaker systems, you can hear the COVID leader desperate to do sociology and behavioural science studies. Yeah, capture everything I do. All the equipment I've exposed: thermology, infrared, ultrasound, X-ray, microwave, sonar, radar, cybercrime equipment, all linked to cyber torture, psychological warfare, torture, and mental and physical abuse daily for 15 years. I can withstand it, but anyone else would do it too. Yeah, some people wouldn't been able to handle it. They would have gone upstairs, kicked the door off, or attacked someone in the workplace, or commit suicide, or got depressed over it all. Yeah, but I'm a strong-minded character, strong-minded person, and I'm here to bring them to justice.
Wrexham, North Wales. Detective Sergeant Adam Williams and the CID team at North Wales Police are called by one of the managers at Maylor, the district's general hospital.
They were basically reporting that they'd had anonymous information suggesting that a member of staff...
I'm reporting the Coventry University Hospital on Walsgrove Road, the main general hospital. Yeah, we've got all kinds of dirty nurses, dirty doctors, thieving doctors and nurses, paedophile, peeping Tom, beady, shifty, fraudulent eyes, trying to abuse me, my mother, my family, and think they can destroy our minds, bodies and souls, and steal off my computer for their football gambling teams, football gambling syndicates, and all their people to boost their wages up. Everyone they've conspired with together. They've got that much manpower, they can't carry on. Yeah, because they've showed everything they've done to us, to loads of people, all over, not just Coventry, West Midlands Associates, and also around the world, UK, and via the internet streaming technology. Yeah, they've been streaming us with the local people all over the world on a secret website that someone's maintaining. Yeah, and they're hiding and looking after in secrecy somewhere in Coventry Police, Fire Service, NHS, Mental Health, some of our centre doctors, psychiatrists, and the local community that they're conspiring with.
Within the IT department, the hospital was stealing equipment. They'd verified that a number of items of hardware were missing from the supplies. Quite a serious allegation.
And plenty of equipment's been stolen from ambulance vans, from the fire service, from the police force, yeah, from the NHS University of England, yeah, and we've also brought loads of equipment due to their career racketeering, money-making ventures. They brought loads of equipment off the dark web, thermology, infrared, ultrasound, X-ray, yeah, see-through wall technologies from the armed forces, from the Navy. Also, all linked to all the people I've mentioned before.
Hospital, like any other large organisation, has an extensive inventory of IT equipment, which is crucial to providing patient services. But somebody obviously doesn't care about that.
The items identified that were going missing at the time was a large amount of computer hardware, so your towers, desktop PCs and laptop computers.
And they don't come cheap. The computers cost between £500 and £1,000 each.
These were brand new pieces of computer hardware. They were basically allocated out from the IT department to staff within the hospital. They were quite difficult to replace. They were ultimately funded by public money through the health board.
With so many people going in and out of its doors, the hospital has its own dedicated police presence.
An officer of ours based at the hospital conducted some initial inquiries. From speaking to the manager, it became quite clear that one of the staff members within the IT department was believed to be responsible, but at that moment they couldn't figure out who it was.
The IT department regularly purchases new equipment. The problem is, the system overseeing its distribution is based on trust. A large team of IT support staff respond to jobs, going round the hospital replacing old or broken equipment as required. Somebody is breaking that trust, but there's no way to confirm who took what, where and when.
We couldn't identify a suspect in the case. The investigation hit a brick wall at that point. After that initial investigation, then the matter was left with the counter fraud at the NHS to make further inquiries.
The case stagnates, but resigned to the fact they may never find out who's stolen their computers, the IT department changed their procedures, so at least it can't happen again.
So every time a computer came in, it was assigned a tracking number so they could see that it was operating on the hospital network and that it was in use. Those changes that they made would allow them to identify if any computer was to go missing and where it was supposed to be.
Months pass and there are no more offences. It's all quiet. Until...
About 6 months later, we received further information from the NHS counter-fraud officers that they believed they knew who the suspect was.
The chief suspect is 36-year-old Neil Roberts, a long-serving, popular member of staff, in a position of trust.
Neil Roberts, at that point, had been an employee at the hospital for 8 years. He was a member of the desktop support team within the IT department, and he was responsible for allocating computer hardware and installing them within the departments within the hospital.
Crucially, Roberts has only just returned to work after a long period of sick leave.
So he was unaware of the changes that were made to the procedures within the hospital.
Strangely enough, when Roberts returns, the suspicious goings-on start again.
An IT engineer within the department raised concerns with his manager around the allocation of a piece of computer hardware.
The engineer's expecting a new computer. Instead, he finds an old one in its place. The new system reveals that the computer that was supposed to be there was last in the hands of Neil Roberts, but its current whereabouts are unknown.
At that point, the staff responsible for the investigation within the IT department conducted an audit of the suspect's recent activity since his return to work.
And they immediately call Adam and the team at CID.
This is the site.
Now that's what needs to be done to all the manpower I've exposed in the social services, the NHS, the mental health unit, the Coventry police, the Coventry CID, private detectives, the firemen, yeah, and the doormen association, yeah, and all the juniors I've mentioned, Ryan Lewis, Tony Chapman, Ashley Mapp, Nathan Crane, Mark O'Hara, Zina Logan, Lyndon Logan, David Jones lookalike from the Foreign Service, from the Foreign Legion boys, to Carl Keeble, to Eric George Govia, yeah, to Duncan Furby, Jeff Kuppadich, Agent Allen, Martin Matthews, Scott Lee, Marvin Davis, Steve Blaney, Armed Forces boys, Callum Hegarty, Dan Hull, yeah, get audit and timeline on all their activities and see how much money they've got in the banks, along with John Briscoe's, yeah, and the Richard Sermons, yeah, Dave Leveridge, Steve Cater, Carl Keeble, Neff Fivey, Kieran Fivey, Sally Fivey, Justin Dehiri, and doing audit and timeline on all their bank accounts and all their properties. Don't forget Dr. Holmes, Dr. Pretorius, and sometimes I tend to Doctors Association Psychaitrists. You've got the registered office, Adult Services Manager Gerard, your social workers Andy Says, Nicola, Sarah Brummel, Pitter, whichever one of them works for social services, yeah, and all their families' connections.
Wrexham Minor Hospital, we visited
with a Coventry CID.
Part of the investigation to speak with managers within the IT department. We established that 7 computers had been identified as missing as part of an internal audit, and this kick-started our police investigation.
The new audit system shows that Neil Roberts was responsible for distributing the now missing computers.
This is a copy of the IT service point log that we received from staff at the hospital. It basically shows a request from a member of staff.
Simon Tilley's another one as well. Just getting more names. Steve Foster. Even my management at SCS. Yeah, because they're very involved in missing CCTV. Yeah, I've said Nigel before. It's Neil Hall. Yeah, Max. Yeah, it all goes on.
Who's experiencing issues with their computer. It then shows the unit that's allocated for it to be replaced.
John Briscoe's another one.
We can see that this job's been signed off by Neil Roberts himself, who's updated it to say that the PC has been replaced.
But it hasn't, and Roberts' IT colleagues are shocked to discover neither have any of the other 6 he was allocated.
They conducted visits to the sites where these computers had supposedly been installed and found that either reconditioned or refurbished computers had been installed, or no computer had been installed at all.
The hospital's NHS counter-fraud officers and the police go back further, sifting through Roberts' paper trail over the previous years for computers he supposedly replaced. They start interviewing staff to see what's fact and what's fiction.
This is a statement from the staff member. This witness says that she's had the same computer for about the last 5 years. She has no recollection of her computer being replaced, and as far as she's aware, no one's contacted IT to request it.
This contradicts what's on Roberts' report, which states that she's been given a new one.
For me, this tells me...
No, it says I can record it all, but stands to investigating police officers to go and investigate all what's going on in Coventry University Hospital, in adult social services, in the NHS, Coventry University Hospital, in the Swansea Centre Doctors Association, Psychaitrists, for confined offices and the computers and their homes, the laptops. Yeah, and along with all the fire service, the Coventry CID, private detectives, aiding and abetting them. Yeah, and all the links in the city. Yeah, they should be audited and a timeline done on them. We should all be investigated.
Neil Roberts is using this system to disguise his activity.
With so many brand new computers potentially unaccounted for, the hospital immediately suspend Neil Roberts on suspicion of gross misconduct.
Some of the staff we spoke to knew the suspect professionally. He was a trusted colleague and they were clearly quite shocked. They couldn't believe he was capable of such a thing.
Later, as they close in on Roberts, Adam and the CID team uncovered the astonishing scale of his fraud.
It became quite clear that he'd sold approximately 60 computers over a period of around 4 years.
I'll pause it for now.
In Wrexham, hospital IT worker Neil Roberts has been suspended on suspicion of stealing equipment from the NHS. Instead of replacing old computers with modern ones, it looks like he may have been taking the brand new PCs for himself. Now he's going to get a visit from rather different PCs. Detective Sergeant Adam Williams and the CID team at North Wales Police move quickly on Roberts, hoping they can seize evidence to prove his wrongdoing.
Officers arrived at Neil Roberts' home address. He was arrested on suspicion of theft at that point, and a search of his home address was completed. Even for someone who worked within IT, there was an unusually large number of computers in his home address.
At Wrexham Police Station, Roberts is grilled over his treasure trove of tech.
He answered no comment to all questions, and he was completely uncooperative with the investigation at this point.
Roberts is released on bail, while further inquiries are carried out.
The next step in the investigation was for us to identify whether the defendant had stolen computers and how he was getting rid of them.
Then they get an anonymous tip-off that blows the case wide open. A letter alleges that Roberts has been flogging NHS computers online through an auction site.
It is quite detailed for an anonymous tip-off. It provides the manufacturer of the laptops, the online auction site that they've been sold from, as well as a good idea of the quantity that had been taken. At this point, this is only an allegation, but it is a serious one nonetheless.
Adam approaches the auction site directly, and they provide details on Roberts' account and his selling history. He's been a busy boy.
It became quite clear that he'd sold approximately 60 computers over a period of around 4 years. We believed at that point we'd found some pretty damning evidence against Neil Roberts.
But to prove they're the hospital's computers, Adam has to go through the painstaking process of tracking down all the unsuspecting buyers Roberts sold them to.
The buyers of the computer hardware, when we contacted them, were really shocked actually that they were being contacted by the police.
Also, a number of the buyers have since resold the computers themselves. But what Adam can recover from those that still have them are the service tag numbers. This is a code unique to each computer, which allows the manufacturer to tell them where it was made and who it was shipped to.
We received about 36 service tags back from the buyers, and with these we collated them all into a spreadsheet, sent them over to staff within the IT department for them to make inquiries with their supplier and the manufacturer.
It's a breakthrough.
And this then ultimately allowed us to prove that around 28 of the computers belonged to the health board within the hospital.
The police now have enough proof to search Robert's PayPal account history and bank records. These show regular, unexplained large sums of money have been coming in. It's strong evidence. Roberts is asked to attend a second police interview.
He spoke quite freely with us, stated that the computers he'd taken from work that we'd recovered from his home address were basically deemed beyond economical repair. He ultimately denied selling any computers that he had taken from work.
Adams grinning aside, Roberts doesn't know that the investigators have got hard evidence of at least 28 sales of hospital computers that says otherwise.
To get the defendant on record saying that he'd not sold on any of the computers he'd taken was gold for us.
Now Adam hits Roberts with the sucker punch.
We supplied the defendant and his solicitor with information that we'd obtained from the online auction site, his activity and the number of computer hardware items that he'd sold on it. We also provided him with information that we'd obtained from his online banking accounts, showing a large amount of money going through it in a time period.
Roberts is floored.
He became quite visibly upset and distressed by the information that we'd given to him. He really withdrew into himself. He was on the verge of tears. And it became quite clear to me at this point that we'd got him.
Roberts grimly continues to answer no comment until he's allowed to leave the station. But he's already incriminated himself, and the Crown Prosecution Service charge him with fraud by abuse of position. Yet amazingly, at his first court hearing, Roberts still pleads not guilty.
For me, as a result of that, I thought the defendant was possibly trying to drag out the trial. It's often frustrating in these cases where the strength of the evidence is overwhelming, as it wastes police time, time of the CPS, court time and public money.
Adam and the CID team meticulously build their case against Roberts. It's been nearly 3 years since the hospital first realised there was something amiss, but finally a date is set for Roberts' trial. Then at the 11th hour, he suddenly changes his plea to guilty.
It was quite clear at this point the strength of evidence against Neil Roberts was overwhelming, and he was forced to admit this.
At Mould Crown Court, Neil Roberts is convicted of fraud over a 4-year period and of defrauding the NHS of £18,000. When it comes to sentencing, the judge takes a very dim view of Roberts' behaviour.
The defence barrister did say that the length of the investigation and the length of time that was held over the defendant should be used in his favour. That was ultimately dismissed by the judge. He stated that the length of the investigation quite clearly only took so long because the defendant was not willing to take responsibility for his actions.
Neil Roberts is hit with a hefty sentence and jailed for 20 months. Unsurprisingly, he also loses his job.
Ultimately, it was a solid result, and I hope it sends out a message that all fraud, especially against the public purse, will be treated seriously and those responsible will face the consequences for their actions.
In North and East London, Emma Viner from the Environment Agency is investigating...
Right, Coventry people. New establishment, UK establishment. What I am exposing is more abusive, more criminal practising, trespassing, walking burglaries, and filming people with all kinds of radiating equipment linked to thermology, X-ray, infrared, ultrasounds, and using sonar radar to sound record people in the workplace, in the comfort of their own home, or in everyday vicinities outside in public, done by ambulance crew members, firemen, police officers, NHS, social workers, mental health workers, as well as our centre doctors, psychiatrists, armed forces boys and loads of people in the community who racketeering with them, all to give their juniors a career. Tony Chapman, Ryan Lewis, Ashley Mapp, Nathan Crane, Mark O'Hara, some of the main juniors. Yeah, but this criminal practicing is the friends of Patrick Hoban. Yeah, Patrick Hoban's old boyfriend. His mother was a council manager who's been hidden by the CID, the private detectives linked to DCR Tarby. And they've used the training of a junior CID, Bertha, Penfold, Sergeant Horton, Sergeant Kirby, Leslie Moore, uniformed police officers who are coming up for them. And it's a big, massive network, wasting public money, wasting police equipment, police time, and wasting NHS and the mental health unit and social services expenditures and time and manpower. Because the training had to try and make surveillance profiles illegally, criminal practicingly, and try and get damning personal persecutions on people they've listed because the court cases didn't go their way. That's what involves Miss Hoban, and her son Patrick Hoban and his friends in Wykin, because the court case didn't go their way in 2003, and we're trying to blame the witnesses, i.e. me, and then done that to my mother, done that to my brother, and they've captured it all, this is what I'm going on to. So between the internet police, other private detective agencies and private detective organisations not linked to West Midlands Police, Trident and Soccer, they can find these internet streams. We can go to all these people's homes and to the police officers' homes, police officers' offices, and all the sector workers' offices, and the NHS Coventry University Hospital, social services offices, and the Swansea Centre Doctor's office, wherever that is, and find all their computers and find all the internet streams, and the networks are all over the West Midlands to other to police stations, to other fire stations, to other NHS, social services and mental health departments and organisations. Find the internet streams, find all the equipment they've used and imprison them. Of a certain case in America, 2 people got 30 years for aiming that equipment on people's bodies and heads. And this is what I'm exposing. They are cyber torture, psychological warfare torture, practiced by the CIA, FBI and Dr. Ewan Cameron in the 1960s, and the Swansea Centre Doctor Psychaitrists and the Coventry CID, the Coventry Police, the Coventry Firemen and some members in Coventry NHS University Hospital and the social services and the mental health sectors. They get a kick out of it all. They're doing them experiments, and they've done it on me, my mother and my brother, and I want them all imprisoned, starting Ryan Lewis, Tony Chapman, who both worked at SCS, along with Adrian Allen, Duncan Furby, Jeff Kupodich, Steve Foster, and all the SCS managers who are there now, and supervisors I've named before. They are covering up for all these criminal practicing police officers and these juniors. And imprison all of them for 30 years. And the SCS management, some will have to be imprisoned. Because they've allowed criminal practicing police officers to practice in work areas where it violates my human rights, work rights, and privacy rights. And they all have to be investigated. So this is why I'm doing these videos. Everyone have a good day.